Megyn Kelly versus Caitlin Clark. I had an opportunity to sit back and listen to Megyn and what her thoughts were, and this was very shocking to me.
You're listening to the Money Mike syndicated radio show. We're going to keep you up to date and current in all sports. We'll make sure you're aware of everything in corporate and enterprise business. And most of all, we'll share with you how to make a little more money as we cover the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball.
So she gets selected as athlete of the year. And what does Caitlin Clark do? Like this woman who's a superstar. She's the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. And she's become a phenom in part because the players of the WNBA, why? Because she's white. It's abject, absolute racism. It's total racism. And one of the things that's been admirable about Caitlin is she just continues to play her game.
And really, she just put Caitlin Clark under full attack. And what was the attack was Caitlin Clark really just acknowledging black players built the WNBA, and also that she has a passion or a emotional attachment to the black women in the WNBA. And really, Megyn had no part of that. She took it to the level that the WNBA players cannot stand Caitlin Clark at all. They've beaten her to a pulp. They've assaulted her. They've done everything you can possibly do.
And put points on the board. And she does very well. And she wins games and she puts butts in the seats and she sells tickets and she gets people tuning in on television. And all really we want to hear from anybody about this is thank you. Thank you to Caitlin Clark for making our league relevant and so on. But instead, she's been bullied repeatedly by the players in this league. She's been assaulted physically. She's been scratched in the eye. And I mean, all of this is on camera. We've covered it repeatedly on the show. So she gets this honor. And all she has to do is continue staying above it.
And I was just taken back and in shock because to give a reaction to this and, to what she believes, okay, and why is Caitlin coming out talking about white privilege? Why would you do that and make it and apologize for it is what she was saying. I mean, she's literally has told Caitlin from a standpoint, these players have basically beaten you, assaulted you. I mean, they've knocked you down. They've done everything they possibly can. And she believes it's out of a position of hatred. And why is Caitlin feeling the need to celebrate African-American women?
Thank you. I'm grateful. Love being in the WNBA, and I love my colleagues who I play with, my teammates. That's it. Instead, she decides to go racial. And what she says is she feels the need to acknowledge her white privilege. Basically, she's sorry she's white. She feels really bad about it, though, so you should give her a pass. And then she makes a point of saying the ones we really need to be celebrating are the black women on whose backs this league was built.
Something around this, but basically she said, Caitlin, based upon your response in the Time magazine interview, okay, first of all, if you felt this way, why did you accept the award? And that one kind of stunned me a little bit. Why did Caitlin accept the award? Well, you got a 22-year-old rookie player carrying the burden of America.
Which I have to tell you is so condescending.
It really
It's
is.
true that most of these black women have been bullying her and want her to understand it's their league. Hello, you don't own the league. Blacks don't own the league, just like whites don't own tennis or golf. Nobody owns the league. This is America. Anybody can play if they're good enough. But they want her on the knee. You'll bend the knee and you'll apologize for being white and you will suck up to the black women who built this league before you, or you will be beaten. You will be assaulted and you will be bullied with no friends.
And that's a tough one. And to come out and say white privilege, I am white privilege, right? Because what does that say? Well, Caitlin, you got athlete of the year because you were white privileged, right? So, and all your accolades that you received in the WNBA were because you were white privileged. privilege, right? But Gaten's saying it in 2 words. She's saying, "Hey, you know what? I've earned all this." Okay? And, Megyn Kelly's not buying it. She's
So she does it. She finally did it. She bent the knee, self-flagellated over white privilege. And look at the black women in this league. And I have to tell you, if I were a black woman in that league, I think I'd say, screw you. Because don't treat me like I am the ugly stepsister and you are Cinderella, and no prince is going to look at me unless Cinderella says, oh, give her a little time. Oh, put her in the spotlight for a moment. I would be offended, genuinely offended by her. Like, look over there. Look at them. They're not white. They did a lot too. And here's the other.
not buying it at all. Basically, this is someone who has enough power and enough reach to really let it be known in thousands. I mean, she just opened up thousands of Clark fans are really upset. They are highly upset for you to take the podium and announce something and say that you have earned it, but you are also acknowledging white privilege.
Thing. It's totally insincere. And here's how you know it's totally insincere. Because if Clark really felt uncomfortable in the spotlight as the newbie who's white, because white people didn't build the league, she wouldn't have said yes to being Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year. So either walk the walk or don't. But what you're doing here is trying to have it both ways. You're too cute by half, and you've managed to piss off your fan base. Go ahead and look at my Twitter feed and the comments under my tweet on this. She's lost thousands of fans, maybe.
Basically, that Clark needed to acknowledge it. And they're like, why would you acknowledge that? Being to say, and also acknowledge that you feel the need to celebrate black women. And in the way she did it, this is what really kind of threw people off, and it threw me off, and it threw everybody off, right? Because you feel the need, because you use the terminology or context that the league was built off the backs of black women, right?
More as a result of this. And you will never appease the race bullies in the WNBA, ever. Because you're too popular, you're too talented, and too white. That's it.
And that's rightfully so, because they've been already playing, right? But Caitlin has interjected a new breed of fans. But now, here's the thing. Caitlin has made a statement, and the new breed of fans that have come in, the new fans are not happy, and some of them are going to be in a revolt. They're just bolting. They're like, we're not even going to watch it anymore, only because that you acknowledge your white privilege. But that's not really it. It's just like everything that has been given to you is because of white privilege, and I have no problem with it. It makes sense to them. It makes sense to me. I stay on my side of the tracks. I understand what they want to do on their side of the tracks. That works, right? So, Caitlin, they promote it, you promote it. And now after they've done all that, you make a statement, I'm white privileged.
Which it's more nonsense than athletic competition in which there are statistics and points scored. It's such a preposterous thing to claim somebody has privilege in a competition of athletics. And not to mention the fact that, you would never say something like that about the NBA, where there are hundreds of black superstars paid millions and millions of dollars. And by the way, that NBA subsidizes the entire WNBA. Yeah, right. So, and she's walking around talking about her white privilege. It's insane.
Well, here's the other thing.
And the other thing she said is the black players don't own the WNBA. They don't own, this is not their league. And she's right. I mean, in a caseful sense, she's right, but really not in the context she's putting it. Is she right? Money Mike might disagree with that. When they say players own the league, you got the majority of players in the WNBA are black players.
Duncan, here's the other question. I don't remember Serena Williams apologizing for her blackness in tennis, which had been dominated mostly by whites. I don't remember Tiger Woods apologizing for his blackness in the PGA, which was dominated by whites. No one would even think of such a thing. They celebrated this new figure in sports who maybe didn't look like all the other figures they knew. They thought it was great. He was to be celebrated. That's how normal people have responded to Caitlin.
What they all had in common is that they fundamentally changed the sport, and they brought casual fans into the sport to become lifelong fans of the sport. It didn't matter what the color of their skin was. That's what Tiger Woods did to golf. That's what Caitlin Clark did to the WNBA.
Okay, we get that. That's over with, right? And every time you get the other 20% may come in the WNBA, may be white players, right? But over the course of history, the WNBA has been made up majority of African American women, right? Playing the game of basketball. Now, you go a step further than that, and now Caitlin Clark arrives. Okay, and at this point, obviously, it got the CBA. It's a negotiation year, and we got the product. We got the product, is what they like to say. But you really don't have the product, because the product nobody was willing to pay for, and now Caitlin's come in and somebody's willing to pay for it.
We got to keep this going because it's like I'm so fired up about it. But imagine a world in which Serena and Venus take over tennis, they crush, and the thought pieces that are being written are, or the comments that they are required to say are, I just want to acknowledge that tennis was built on the back of white people like Chrissy Everett and Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King. And, I have black privilege in being here because of my whatever, however she wants to attribute that. It wasn't explained by Caitlin either, exactly how her white privilege got her some more attention in the league. That's the theory by some racists, that the only reason we want to watch Caitlin is because she's white and we can't stand watching the blacks, but we'll watch the white, which is absurd. She's by far the best. The stats prove it. That's why she's so popular.
And Caitlin, we've slotted you in. Now you got to complete the task. That's where you got to play the game, is basically what they're telling Caitlin Clark. You need to play the game. If you want to keep receiving all the rewards, everything that you want, you need to play the game, right? And and here's Meg, what she said was black women should be offended, right? For Caitlin Clark to come out here and say, I'm going to be your savior, I'm going to be your Cinderella, that black women should be offended.
Caitlin Clark is one of them. But this story and naming her really strikes me as something that was negotiated between her PR agent and Time Magazine, where the agreement was she would say what the left wanted to hear, and in exchange, she's named athlete.
Well, I feel bad. And let me tell you why I feel bad. And I feel bad from the bottom of my heart. And when you hear me say this, Caitlin Clark is a 22-year-old. Right? And no 22-year-old, okay, should be carrying America on the back of their shoulders, right? And you're really not, you haven't lived long enough to understand, what you say and what impact it will have, right?
Social atmosphere where you just didn't think of people in white buckets and black buckets. And like all my heroes were young black athletes. And I never thought about that.
Yeah, when I watched Family Matters, it wasn't like, oh, I'm watching the black sitcom.
Yeah.
You never thought about that as a kid.
Like the Cosby Show.
Cosby Show.
Like, you're like, you weren't like, oh man, well, let's watch the black show tonight. Like it just never had, that's not how we grew up. And somehow time over the last 10 years, all of that changed. And it took people a while to try to figure out how and why and what they could do about it.
Megyn, and she comes out, and you know what? You got the right. I mean, you got a situation where Caitlin's been forced into something, acknowledges, I earned everything you had. Now, she's right. She did earn it, right? There's no doubt about it. And while earning it, I mean, there was quite a bit of WNBA players that were upset with Caitlin. They weren't happy. They were following, beating. I mean, I really said the same thing Megyn said. You beat her to a bloody pulp, right?
I think you're talking about like a 22-year-old young woman who's sort of thrust into this cultural icon. I bet 5 years from now she's going to wish she had that back. And I don't think that. I don't think that.
I mean, right now, what we know about Caitlin Clark is she's reportedly dating some very, very woke leftist. But what we know about her is she liked Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris. So she seems to be telegraphing something about her politics, even though she doesn't often tweet or post about politics. It seems pretty clear she was in that lane hoping Kamala Harris got elected, though when asked about it, she tried to play it off as she was just, really in favor of people informing themselves about the issues and making sure they vote. Okay.
You're trying to get blood out of turnip. She took the beating. Right? But she came back and said everything that you said about all these players Okay, it doesn't matter if it's Carrington with the son, right? Doesn't matter if it's Kennedy Carter. Doesn't matter if it's Angel Reese. Well, Angel Reese is a little different, all right, because she was adamant about that. We're not best friends, right? But at the same time, she didn't really go after Carrington. She says, I've been poked in the eye a lot of times, right? So, I mean, that's really saying I'm not your enemy to the WNBA players, but to the marketing team and America, that's not what they want. They want you to be an enemy. And it's really not, it's called the battle of competition. We don't love you and you don't love us. And you've been insulting Caitlin for a long time. I mean, it's the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We're powered up by Fanatics. You got Megyn just speaking her mind, and man, is she ripping Caitlin Clark to a brand new one. And really just saying Caitlin shouldn't have accepted the award because the minute you accepted that award was the minute that you made an agreement with Time Magazine. And it really came across as the reason you accepted it, or their terms were you have to answer these questions, or these are the questions that we need for you. So was it a give or take? If you give us the interview, we give you the award. Okay, and that's what they should be. Now, here's the thing, but Caitlin Clark and black women, Megyn saying they should be offended. They shouldn't be accepting that she's their savior. They shouldn't be accepted that they needed you to succeed. And really that's strong statements too, right? Because they're saying you're not our Cinderella and you're not our savior. And they're saying we've been playing this game for a long time, and Caitlin's been playing a game too and playing against the same players. And now all of a sudden she's going to be, upset. Now you got the race bully. So, folks, I wanted to bring this to you. This Time Magazine report was a bombshell. And here's where I see all this coming in, and my position on it, and why is Megyn Kelly just treating Caitlin Clark just like she's a stepchild. I mean, I've never seen anybody get on there and just beat somebody to the pulp for what they've been involved in and how much politics. And it's not about how great the basketball is. I think that's the major determining factor. It's not the players or the talent or anything like that why the WNBA hasn't grown. You know why the WNBA hasn't grown? And this is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We'll end with this.
You're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Show. We're going to keep you up to date and current in all sports. We'll make sure you're aware of everything in corporate and enterprise business. And most of all, we'll share with you how to make a little more money as we cover the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball.
All things are possible to those who believe. The WNBA hasn't grown because of politics, folks. I mean, it's politics. Because this right here is stunting the growth of the WNBA. And when you get there and it's such a feud, in America, I didn't know this feud existence. It just went over the top of my head, the feud between white women and black women. But apparently it's a bigger feud in America than one may believe. But we'll keep marching on. We got more that we're going to pull out of this Time Magazine because there's so much was said, and I don't think the pressure of a 22-year-old. I'm a Caitlin Clark fan, but I'm a WNBA players fan as well. I mean, I keep it objective. I try to cover the players all across the league. And this one here, I've never seen a player with such high esteem of her fan base be drugged down as Megyn has done and say the fans want nothing to do with you. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast, and we are powered up by Fanatics. We'll see you soon.